Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Okay, so we're going to be starting today. The session is about communication. What I will do is that I will mute everyone, and if someone wants to ask a question, they can raise their hands. I hope you are all familiar with the option of raising your hand.
Yes.
If you're not, just familiarize yourself. There's one option where you can raise your hand, and then I will stop and I will answer your question. So please, unless you have some really, unless you want to talk, don't unmute yourself, because we don't want any disruptions for the other students. So now the time is 7:02. We can start. I think everyone is almost there. So basically, today's session is about communication, and we want to know why communication. Communication is because whenever we're dealing with people, whether we're dealing with suppliers, whether we're dealing with tenants, whether we're dealing with whoever we are dealing with, we are always communicating. There are internal communications inside the company or inside the organization, and there are external communications. So that's why communication is the first step, which is mentioned in the modules. So we will be covering that today. To start with, we start by, just a second, something else. Yeah. So again, why communication? If you remember, what is facility management? We define facility management as the multidisciplinary it's a multidisciplinary profession which is done to ensure the functionality of the built environment. And how do we ensure the functionality of the built environment? We do that by integrating the people, process, and technology. To integrate all these people, process, and technology, you need to communicate. And that's why you need to have a proper basis on which you can communicate. I just want to confirm that everyone is hearing me.
Yes. Yes, thank you.
Yes, I can hear you.
All right.
Yes.
Yes.
By the way, feel free to stop me at any time, but what I don't want is opening the mics for no reason. If you have a question, you're more than welcome to open the mic and ask. Okay. So there is someone who's opening their. Yeah, I'll mute everyone. Okay, so one of the rules of communication is that you have to select the way in which you address your audience. The form and format of communication differs from a situation to the other. If I want to make a presentation today, and the same presentation which I'm giving you now, for example, if let's say I want to give it as an introduction to communication, I want to give it to my grandma and my relatives, maybe they don't have the necessary background or information, or even they don't speak English in itself. So for that case, I have to change the format in which I'm giving them the presentation. If I'm a doctor and I'm talking to doctors in a convention which is very technical, then there is no need for me I can be elaborate. Or if I'm an engineer, mechanical engineer, giving a lecture to mechanical engineers on the utilization of chillers, I can be technical. But if I am an engineer and wants to give the same presentation or concept to my management, I should change the format. I should focus on them differently. I should address them differently. I should understand my audience. So selecting the appropriate media and format to reach the intended audience is a key important way of communication. Communication is the two-way communication, where there is one sender and one recipient on the other side, and there's a message that's being transmitted between the two. Sometimes it's a one way, in the sense that I am sending a communication and I'm not getting feedback. For example, if I put on the notice board that on so and so date, we're gonna come and do the civil defense inspection for all the flats. This is a one-way communication. I'm just communicating what I need to do. I'm not asking feedback. A two-way communication, it's, let's say I go and make a Facebook group or whatever, and I announce on so and so date I'm gonna do civil defense. Would that be suitable? So I'm opening a two-way communication channel. The communication model that's defined by IFMA involves having a sender and a receiver, as we mentioned. Let me just, so we have a sender. These are the core components. We have a sender on one side, and we have a receiver on the other side, and we have a message in between. So there's a message that I'm trying to convey. In this case, for example, you are the receivers, I am the sender. The message that I'm trying to convey is the course material. Other than that, so there are so these are the three basic things: the sender, the receiver, and the message. Other than that, there are other concepts which we will be looking at now. There is the medium. So the medium pathway through which the message is sent. So now the medium that we are using video conferencing. It is a full audio-visual communication tool, but it's carried through Zoom, an electronic medium. So this is the medium. What is noise? Noise is anything that distorts the message. Noise doesn't have to be technically only noise. For example, I was always saying to mute your speakers, because noise coming from your side or even from my side, if I'm having noise here, will distort the message. So it's anything that distorts the message. And we have also the feedback. Feedback is, so the noise doesn't necessarily mean only communication noise. For example, if my internet starts flickering, or the broadband bandwidth at your PC is not strong enough, and you're hearing me with a distorted noise, that's considered noise. So noise is anything that distorts the message. It can be the actual noise itself, it can be other things. Feedback is a verbal or non-verbal reaction to the message. So in this case, for example, the feedback that I can receive from you would be mostly through audio or through video. But if we were doing it like we used to do in the class, you can give a non-verbal reaction to the message. Here, okay, you can, but it's quite difficult. But there, it's much easier. I can look at the class and I can see if you're understanding, if you are, I can read your faces. And this is a form of feedback. You can be nodding your head that you are understanding, or you can say, okay, it's clear. Like now when I asked, do you guys hear me? You gave me feedback. Yes, we can hear you. In addition to that, there are filters. What is this filter? So the filters are things that change the way we look at a message. For example, if I tell you the same message to all of you, and you will understand it differently. Why you will understand it differently? Because there are several other factors. So these filters, for example, if your education, let's say if you are a specialist in communication for this session, maybe these topics, all of them, you know them already. So these are things that, okay, maybe you can add to it and think it indifferently. For others, this is very new to them. So the filters are the perceptions which can affect the message. not the same message goes to people equally. People interpret it differently. We are unique. Each of us has a different way of looking at things. Although we speak the common language, although we speak, maybe we are from the same age, from the same country, even you and your brother or sister, when you hear something, you interpret it differently. And these are what are the filters. There are two forms of communication, formal and informal. Majority of communication inside organizations is not formal, contrary to what you might think. It is mainly informal. Everywhere we communicate is mainly informal. Why? Formal communication, by definition, are the policies, procedures, organizational objectives, emails, memos, like, okay, on so and so date, formal communication. We're going to be increasing the work time from 8 to 5 till 8 to 6. So this is a formal communication. Or anyone who is late for work for more than 5 minutes will need to provide some sort of documentation, and otherwise he will be penalized. So this is a formal communication. If you notice, email is put as a formal communication, but the same media itself, email, can be informal. So these are two things. So it can be a formal email or an informal email. In an informal email, your colleague is sending you, let's say, can we meet at 6? It can be an informal, yes, one word. So informal involves conversations, telephone calls, text messages, social media, or anything. So even when you're communicating with your colleagues, you're not communicating, you need something from the site, you need something from procurement. Maybe there is some formal communication where you put a request, but most of the communication, you will lift the phone and call to that person, or you can go to their desk and explain to them. So this is the form of informal communication. Out of these concepts of informal communication, a concept which is under highlight now is called the grapevine. The grapevine is an informal person-to-person method of transmission of information, gossip, rumors. Any company, any body of work will always have these informal conversations. They call them by the water cooler talks in the States. This is how they refer to them. So these are the casual talks while you talk to your colleague. Not all the day we're communicating formally. We are asking each other about our friends, our family, etc. And one form of communication is the grapevine, where we are trying to, sometimes rumors spread. And it happens, let's say, towards the end of the year. Oh, did you understand? Someone will come and say, we'll hear something from the CEO, and then he'll come and say, oh, do you understand that this year they're not going to be paying bonuses? And then this information propagates throughout the organization. A grapevine can go and cross all borders. You can have it from a CEO going to a T-boy, going to an engineer on site. And it's a very important form of communication. It's not formalized, and you cannot regularize it. And that's why the IFMA says, as I said, IFMA always is practical in their approach. And they said an FM should try and ensure that key persons in the grapevine get the right information. In the sense that you cannot stop these talks, you cannot stop these conversations. But what you can do is that make sure that there are sometimes people who are influential in this kind of communication. Can be, for example, the CEO's secretary. She will know more information than even a project director on site. So there are some key people who are in the grapevine, and it's good for you to be transparent to them and convey the message direct to them. Like, for example, in the case you start hearing rumors and some people come and ask you, oh, is it true that they're not going to be paying bonuses? Then maybe you can clarify, yes, we're going to be paying bonuses, but it's going to be delayed by 2 to 3 months. That way you avoid speculation and you avoid unnecessary, disruptive, wrong information spreading throughout the organization. For example, we've witnessed in the last few months, they have been very difficult for many people. Many people have been laid off, and a lot of informal gossip was making everyone very nervous. And it's important to calm this thing down because it's very counterproductive. Communication direction and flows. There are three ways of communication in an organization. There's a downward communication, there's an upward communication, and there's a lateral. So downward communication usually happens, as the name says, from top management to the bottom. And usually it's about the vision, the mission, the values, the objectives, the policies, procedures, instructions, methods, information sharing, and so on. So this is downward communication. So they can be directives. Okay, you need to execute this job. Upward communication is usually from top to above. Results, let's say, okay, we were told to execute this procedure, and what's the result? Status updates, suggestions, problems, complaints, questions, needs, concerns, and so on. All of this is upward communication. Lateral communication is a communication that flows horizontally among peers within teams and across functions. So within teams, let's say you have an FM team, and then the head of marketing, let's say, or the head of sales, or the CEO say, okay, we want this contract, congratulations everyone, and then you give directions to the FM team to mobilize within 20 days. This is the contract, go ahead and move with it. So the FM team will communicate internally to organize this. Also, they will communicate with other teams. For example, the FM maybe need to organize with procurement. They need to organize with other divisions in the organization, the financial team, for example. And this is what we call lateral communication. Communication barriers. So the whole chapter talks about communication, how we differently as individuals, as individual we are, and as diversified we are, as we interpret communications differently. The same message, some people can find it offensive, other people can find it regular, other people can find it funny. There are general rules, but again, we perceive things differently. So interruptions or distractions can be including phone calls, emails. So let's say I am communicating with a colleague, I'm having a meeting with them or with a client, and then, okay, sorry, I have to take this phone call. Or sorry, I got an important email I have to reply to. Environment in which surrounding us, like poor lighting, noise. For example, if I am at site running inside the generator room, it will not be a proper setting for me to discuss the career path or salary rates for an employee. Simply, we cannot communicate in a very clear and understandable manner. Frames of reference. Frames of reference. So this is again due to our subjectivity, the knowledge, education, and experience. This is a communication barrier. Let's say you are trying to communicate to the people at site, these uneducated laborers, maybe they don't have enough education, and you cannot communicate everything to them directly. You have to go to their level of knowledge, their level of experience. Or let's say, as I said, when you go and sit with your doctor, the doctor is not gonna, and you have a certain problem, the doctor is gonna, how do I say, dumb it for you. He's gonna make it not technical. He's not gonna tell you this technical item in your skeletal system, this disc is having a problem, whatever. He will explain it in a way in which you can understand to prevent these communication barriers. Whereas if he goes and talks to his colleague, he's going to talk to him in a very different manner because they both have the same education and same frame of reference. Value judgments, personal stereotypes, and prejudice. So they say that within a few seconds from seeing a person, you would have already formed an idea about that person. And this is how our brain works, actually. We come and we tend to make everything think of in terms of patterns, And that's why we have these prejudices sometimes. Let's say I find like some people say, oh, he's an old man, he's gonna come and give me headache, he's not gonna understand quickly. So these are prejudices towards certain people, or even they can be positive prejudices. For example, oh, he's an old man, he can be wise. So this is a communication barrier in itself, because maybe you will assume certain things. Like if you see someone, let's say an old man, you will assume he will not hear. You will assume he doesn't understand you. And this can be very much wrong. Communication barrier, the source credibility. We know that sometimes certain people will come and tell us things, and they've been consistently telling us the same thing and nothing of it is happening. So there is no credibility to what they say. Whereas someone with a high credibility, you will listen more actively to what they say. Languages and dialects, as the name says, a communication barrier. And we are all living in Qatar or in the Gulf, and we are speaking English. And maybe, I don't know, 90% of us, English is not their mother tongue, even more than that. So I can, for example, express myself, or you can express yourself in your native tongue much better than you can in a second language. And that in itself is the communication barrier. So sometimes people say, oh, look at this man, he's not understanding. He's not understanding the concept, but he maybe is not understanding your language or your dialect. Resistance to change. So sometimes people simply want to phase out and not listen. Generational diversity. So all kinds of diversity create these barriers, whether they're man to female, whether they are old to young, and so on. Cultural differences. So cultural differences, what might be offensive to certain people might not be very offensive to the others. For example, if you come and talk to someone about alcohol in this part of the world, maybe they'll take it very negatively. So this is again a communication barrier. And the lack of feedback. When you are doing a one-way communication, it's a communication barrier. I mentioned the example, like in a typical classroom, I myself will be able to feel much more comfortable because I will be seeing the feedback. I will be looking at your faces and understanding if you understood yes or no. So this is again a communication barrier. We have reached a point in technology where I can see you, but still if you were all in one room, it would have been much easier for me to get feedback. Timing. You have to select the right time of the day, right time to address a certain thing. If someone is leaving the office and is already in the mood of going home, and then there is no need for you to, you raised hand, who raised his hand? Okay, let me mute you guys. I didn't see it. Yeah, Ahmad, you had a question? Ahmad Abdul Rahman. Ahmad, I saw you. Please, who's having ringtone? Please close it. Ahmad, you raised your hand. You had a question. We cannot hear you if you're talking. You need to unmute yourself.
Excuse me, still about the question about the grapevine. Now
About what?
Grapevine,
Yeah.
the grapevine.
Yeah.
Yes, till now actually I didn't understand the relation. Yani why it is named this grapevine? Yani why another, yeah.
Have you looked at a grapevine before? Have you seen one?
Like a broad leaf, that's all.
No. It goes, and it's like a network. It goes all over. It goes up, down. It doesn't go with a certain structure. It goes everywhere. So it goes and climbs everywhere. So it goes in all directions. That's why they call it the grapevine. because it goes and it crosses. So this informal way of communication. It goes across all the divisions in the company. It goes across all the levels. A CEO can be talking to a junior engineer and telling him, "Oh my God, you heard what? There is gonna be a cut on so and so contract, and maybe we will have to let go some people." So this is a form of informal communication that's crossing everything.
So meaning to say no limits, يعني it can go through everywhere.
Yeah, it's an informal way. Yes.
يعني what's the relation of this? It's an informal way for connection, for contact.
It's just an informal way of communication within the organization. Within the organization, maybe you are reporting to an engineering division and you have nothing to do with the finance people. Absolutely nothing in terms of work. Okay? But you communicate with them, and maybe you develop personal relationship with the CFO or with someone in the finance department, and you talk to them directly. So this is an informal way of communication. You're not talking to them regarding any job, but you are part of the same organization, and you can be both talking about the same thing, which is of concern.
And this name can be anyone who, for instance, have information. Yeah. Can you give me example? For instance, can be a manager, for instance. This grapevine can be a manager, can be simple employee, secretary.
Grapevine is a network, and don't get stuck on the name of grapevine. It's a network. It's a network. That's what it means. Is that's a network of information flow that goes across every division, every formal or informal.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, we go ahead.
Can I?
Yeah.
Okay. Regarding the source credibility, I didn't understand quite that.
Your voice is very far, Muhammad, but I got it. Credibility. Credible means how credible is the source. Credibility يعني in Arabic is المصداقية. Okay, so a source can be not credible. يعني you can receive some information, but you are not sure. This guy keeps telling things which are really not reliable. They say, for example, on so and so date they will complete the project, but I don't. This guy has always been saying like that. This project manager, whereas the other project manager is much more credible. Or let's say a supplier. A supplier can be credible. He will tell you on the 5th he will deliver. He will deliver on the 5th. Other source, a communication barrier. You go and tell your boss, look, this guy told us he will deliver on the 5th, but previously for the last 10 times we've been dealing with him, he always is lying. So this is a communication barrier because you cannot trust what he says.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. So I will be moving. Again, if you guys have any question, please, you can ask. Sheer communication volume. A problem with communication is that now we're living in an age where we are being bombarded by thousands and thousands of messages, information. They say an average person is bombarded by marketing thousands of times per day. And now with the communication explosion, even in your device, you have Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, you can watch a show on TV. And even at work, previously people used to email less because it was not that common. But now if someone even wants to see you at lunch, he will just mail you. So the sheer communication volume is a barrier in itself. And I'm sure you suffer from it on a day-to-day basis. Like every day, maybe I got now up to 100 emails or more per day. And many of them I will be just copied in them, and really I have nothing to do there. Maybe just keeping it for my information. So this sheer communication volume, and then someone will come and tell you, but I emailed you this. I'm getting hundreds of emails. So this is a communication barrier. When you need to have something specific, maybe lift the call and tell me, text me, or address the email to myself. So that's just the sheer communication volume acting as a communication barrier. Moving along. What is the difference between effective and efficient? This concept will come again throughout the module regarding effectiveness and efficiency. Effective, something is effective when it does the intended purpose of it. I want to communicate to you that tomorrow we are going to start this project. An effective way would be I go to your office and I tell you to your face that tomorrow at 10 o'clock we are starting this project. This is an effective communication, and then you will be able to confirm on spot, yes, I will be there and I will be ready. Full stop. This is a very effective way of communication. Efficient, let's say I want to tell to 50 people in the organization that tomorrow at 10 we're going to start the project. It will not be very efficient. Efficient, it means something involving time, money, or resources. It will not be efficient for me to go and to the office of each and every individual and tell them that tomorrow at 10 we will get this. It will be effective, but it will not be efficient. It will be much more efficient for me, for example, to shoot an email to all these names, telling them tomorrow at 10 you should be attending. So this is the difference between effective and efficient communications. So to be, and usually, ideally, you should be both effective and efficient. And the sense is that you should select a medium appropriate for the information and effective in the sense that you get what the desired intent. So to have effective communication, you should be clear about the purpose of the message. Let's say when you're doing performance evaluation, you go and talk to the client, to the employee, and tell him, okay, today we're going to do your performance evaluation. Or the reason that I am conducting this meeting, let's say we're making a meeting, the reason of the conducting of this meeting is for so and so purpose. So the purpose of the message is very clear. Even in an email, the subject should reflect what you want to communicate. Ensure that the message is understandable. So you have to ensure that whatever you're sending is relevant to that person and that they can understand it. Know your audience. This is what I was always talking about. Know your audience. When you want to address people on, let's say, workplace safety, you see that how they address the laborers at site. Mostly they use pictorial images to avoid any confusion, or even they communicate it in their own language. You see signs in Hindi, signs in Urdu and Tagalog and so on, so that they are going to the level of the audience and explaining to them in their language, and they are using a quick message, wear a safety helmet. So it's quick, fast, and direct to the point. Solicit feedback. Feedback is something very important, and for you to be effective is that you are asking feedback. For example, the example which I said, tomorrow we're starting a project, then I can say in my email, okay, the reason I'm emailing you is that to announce that tomorrow we're going to be starting the project and everyone should be attending in so and so room to start the project, to have the project kickstart meeting. Please send me an email of confirmation. So this way you are soliciting feedback. Use the appropriate media. So again, selecting the appropriate media is very important for communication. If I want to, let's say, send a contractual letter to a client, okay, I will not go and let's say they are in a breach of the contract. I cannot go and text them, you are in breach of contract. This is not the appropriate media. Maybe it's much more appropriate to, rather than even have the email, maybe it's not that appropriate. Let's say I want to send a legal notice. I have to go and write a formal letter. The 6 C's of communication. For communication to be effective and efficient, it should be clear. So the message is clear and straightforward. Complete in the sense partial information. If I want to convey something, okay, let's meet tomorrow. Okay, this is okay, concise, but it's not clear. It's partial. To meet tomorrow where? Or everyone should attend tomorrow. Where? Don't assume that people know. Concise means brief. You all deal with this one person who sends a very big block of email, which is going around the circle explaining the same topic. So this is not a concise communication. This is not a clear and efficient communication. It's better to select not sometimes, always having more information is counterproductive. So you need to have the right amount of information, not more, not less. Contextual, it means that talking about the same text, context in which you are talking about. Conversational, it means it's a two-way channel. And correct. So this is the 6 C's. Effective communication, which I explained earlier, is in the right format at the right time and have the right impact. So it's in the right format at the right time and have the right impact. One of the most effective ways of communication is a personal one-on-one, face-to-face meeting. But it costs more time, money, resources, and effort. So not all communication should be in a one-on-one meeting. Let's say if I want to announce to everyone that starting tomorrow, we shifted the work hours from 8 till 9, I really don't need to go and tell everyone. I can just put a memo and send a couple of emails and I'm done. So efficient, it means that it contains only the information required in a minimum amount of time, money, and effort. So examples, email, memo, WhatsApp message, or whatever. So this is the difference between effective and efficient. Non-verbal communication. What is non-verbal communication? I don't know if you know this, but it's a very common thing now that everyone talks about body language. Body language and other things as well is that, strange enough, if you look at the chart, the pie chart there, only 7% of our communication happens through words. The rest happens through body language. We see and understand people by body language, the voice tone, the poses, and so on. And even the way you dress is a way of communicating with someone else. That's why when you are going for a job interview, you don't go in shorts and sleeves. You go dressed in a proper attire and to convey that you are a professional. So this is in a way that you are communicating. So these wordless messages, as you see, most of communication is non-verbal, not through words. Think of it like this way. You have a candidate coming and applying for a job. One is wearing a suit, the other is coming in a shirt, t-shirt, let's say. Without even talking to them, and it's a senior position, they have directly conveyed a very negative communication. Maybe they are very smart, very bright, but again, or let's say they come with dirty clothes. So examples: dress, eye contact, facial expressions, eye contact. For example, once I had one guy applying for a sales job, and all the time during his interview, he was looking at the table, not avoiding eye contact with us. Definitely he couldn't get the job, because if he's not able to communicate to us, then how can he communicate to a client? The gestures, the personal space, the posture, and voice are important parts of nonverbal communication. So the body language is very important. You can understand a lot of a person from their body language. There are books on the subject. There is several books, and it's a science in itself. So, for example, if I'm talking to you and I'm putting my hands crossed, it means that I'm in a defensive mode. I'm blocking. If I'm talking with open hands and with open chest, means I am open. We can see, for example, that lady in the slide is what she's having, what we call as a power pose. Power pose means she feels that she is in control and she can do that. So even if people don't say, it just naturally happens. The way when we talk, the body movement, it happens naturally, and it can convey a lot about us. And that's why police divisions across the world are trained in body language, because maybe you are telling the lies from your mouth and the words they try to look into, let's say, border control people, like in immigration. They are trained for this. They are trained to see and sense if you are stressed out, if you are tense, or if you are hiding something, okay? Your moms used to go on and use body language against you. They used to tell you, for example, if you are lying, oh, I can see you're lying, and so on, you're being nervous. So effective communication involves watching out to the nonverbal cues when communicating. So if, let's say, you ask someone, okay, are you happy with the new position? And then they say, so they are saying yes, but the way they are saying it, the tone of the voice, their facial expressions show this. Same question, you can ask another person, it tells you, hell yeah, I love it. So they're saying the same message, but the interpretation is different. So think about how others will interpret your nonverbal behavior. So you have to be very careful on how to do that. An example, body language, as I said, is a word. If you're talking to someone and raising the finger like this is a sign of threat. If you're let's say talking to a client, even if you're telling him nice things, it's hardwired into our head. And you make this kind of communication, you're not sending the right message. You have to be sensitive and observing them, but you should not overanalyze nonverbal cues without verification. So even the most famous books on body language tell you don't take things out of context. As I said, for example, if someone is having their hands locked like this, they're trying to be defensive, but it can be also that because they are cold. So you have to look into the context. Let's say the AC is very cold and they are sitting in this position because of that. Active listening. Active listening is an important concept that has lots of focus in the communication module and in the exam questions. Active listening, there's a difference between hearing and listening. Hearing is a process of hearing the words. We are in both cases hearing the words, but it's a passive process. So it's just about perceiving sounds and effortless activity. You hear a million messages a day. An example for you for hearing is that when you're not focused, let's say you're coming tired and destroyed and you go and sit in the home on the couch, and then let's say your wife, your colleague, your mother, whatever comes and tells you something, and you say, yeah, you're not really listening. You're just like passively listening to it. You're not active listening. So active listening is an active process in which you are trying to understand the information which is being sent to you. It requires conscious efforts and concentration and interest. Okay, so this is what we call as active listening. Many people hear and don't listen. I face it a lot with the crew, with team members, is that they just have an idea in their head and they are hearing the voice and not listening to the message. And this is a way of really not understanding what's happening. So this is the difference between the two, the hearing and listening. When you're listening with your head, you are listening faster and you are not really focusing on the, sometimes people will be talking to you and you will be wandering somewhere else. You will be thinking about what I'm gonna have for lunch today. You're not actively listening. Whereas in some cases, other cases, people will be talking and you will be actively listening. You can measure it on yourself. We all have this friend, or maybe you are this friend, which is known to be a very good listener. A very good listener is a person who actively listens to you and is compassionate to what you're talking. So if you have a problem, usually you have a friend who you will go and share everything with them. Why? Because they're a good listener. Active listening is good because it builds relationships, it enables attentiveness to others, and it promotes people to open up and give them to say more. They say a good manager is a good listener. I don't know if you've heard this, but this is very true. If your manager is not listening to you, or if you as a manager is not listening to the concerns of your team members, you're not likely a good manager or a good leader. So the active listening cleanse is that paying attention, withholding judgment. Don't formulate a judgment. If you want to actively listen to someone, don't formulate a judgment. Don't jump to conclusions. Don't assume. Don't create prejudices. Reflect, think about what they're saying, clarify if you have something missing, and then summarize. Oh, so you go, for example, and talking to someone, and he's complaining because he is facing challenges at work. You can choose to dismiss it, or you can listen actively to them, hear what's their problem, think of it, clarify. So this is what you are saying. Summarize. Oh, so you mean to tell me you're not able to concentrate on your job because of 1, 2, 3, and share. So this is a two-way communication. So this is the foundation of active listening. It means listening with all your mind and heart, not having words come from one ear and pass to the other. This is something that ladies complain from their husbands, is that you're not listening to me. So why? Because sometimes men shut down and really just are hearing and are not listening. The communication preferences of males and females are different. So the barriers to active listening, what can be a barrier to active listening? Busyness. This is a very legitimate thing. Sometimes you are busy and are not able to concentrate, or someone is catching you between meetings. You will not be attentive. You are really thinking about the other thing, or you're busy with something else. Daydreaming. Some people daydream and are not focusing. Faking. Sometimes you will be talking to someone and you really have no interest in them. So you will be faking that you are listening and you're nodding their head. This is not active listening. Geographic distance. For example, now I don't know who of you is understanding what I'm saying and who are just telling me yes, and it'll be good that all of you would be understanding, but again, this is a barrier. Hearing impairments, as the name says, someone cannot really listen properly or cannot understand the dialect. Interruptions, lack of interest, language and cultural differences. So we covered all of those and they are repeated here again. So the language itself will not allow people to express themselves. I, as an Arabic, for example, will be able, although I have a good command of the English language, but if I want to express myself, I will express myself better in Arabic. Presuming, this is what I say, the assumptions, rushing to conclusions. Some people don't want to listen. They go and jump directly. The moment you're talking to them and they are formulating an answer. This is totally against active listening. Active listening is listening very attentively and removing all prejudices. Selective listening. So people, they say, listen to what they hear, what they want to hear. So as I said, the same message, if you give it to 10 people, you will have 10 versions of the message received. 10 versions. Not all will understand it in the same way. Not all will understand it in the same context. Short attention span. I had a very low attention span at school. I was always daydreaming and not listening. So it's just a character thing. And even, let's say I have it now with the team, I have some team members where I really have to be brief and concise when trying to pass a message because their attention span is limited. They want to get, and they grasp the information quickly. Others, on the other hand, no, you cannot just shoot them a message. You have to sit down with them, explain, justify, and so on. So the way we process and perceive information is totally different. And personal biases, this we talked about earlier, the prejudices. oh my God, he's an old man, he's not gonna understand me. Don't assume. Questioning. A very key part of active listening is questioning. They say ask the right questions. Asking the right questions, you will get the right feedback. Open and versus closed-ended questions. What's an open-ended question? An open-ended question is a question which is open, as the name says. A closed is that you're looking for a yes or a no. You're looking for a choice. For example, a very open-ended question is you come and in interviews, first question I ask people, tell me about your experience. One of the questions that I ask. This is an open-ended question. Or tell me about yourself, even much more broad. So some people start by talking about themselves from the day they were born. Others will talk about their career. Others will focus on other things, on their education more. So again, it tells you others what they're thinking. Or let's say, what do you like to do? Another open-ended question. What do you like to do over the weekend? This is an open-ended question. A closed-ended question is that, do you like to go to the mall or to go to the beach on the weekend? So the closed-ended question, I'm giving the respondent only a limited choice, yes or no. So if we look at this here, is that open, how do you get to work as an open-ended? Closed, do you get to work by driving, busing, or walking? Open, tell me about your relationship with your boss. Again, an open question. And here is, do you get well on with your boss? If you want to have a conversation with someone, ask open-ended questions. Don't ask limited questions. If you want to generate a conversation with anyone, don't limit it to so did you like this? Yes or no. When you tell them, okay, please tell me what do you think about this, you are opening it up. Cross-cultural communication. Just let me see, we are on which slide. Okay. IFM, and let us guys take a 5-minute break, please. We will be back in 5 minutes exactly at 8, okay? You can hear me?
Yes, it's clear.
Yeah, okay. So let's come back in 5 minutes.
Okay, sir, okay. Okay, sir, okay.
இதெல்லாம் சொல்ல மாட்டாப்ல ராகுல். இதே மாதிரி யூசர் கம்ப்ளைண்ட் ஆகுது. நான் எல்லாத்தையும் சொல்லுவேன்.
എന്താണ് അഭിലാഷ് ഭായ് കാണിക്കുന്നത്?
ഹേയ്,
കൊറേ നേരമായിട്ട് ചിരണ്ടത്.
നമ്മൾ അതിനോടൊക്കെ പോയിട്ട് ഫേസ്ബുക്കിൽ നോക്കിയതാ. നമുക്ക് മണി വേണ്ടേ?
ഓക്കെ. നാട്ടിലെവിടെ?
ഞാൻ കണ്ണൂര്.
ഞാൻ ഒറ്റപ്പാലം.
ഒറ്റപ്പാലം തൃശ്ശൂര്, പാലക്കാട്.
പാലക്കാട് തൃശ്ശൂർ ബോർഡറായിട്ട് വരും.
അല്ലേ? എവിടെയായിട്ട് വർക്ക് ചെയ്യുന്നത്?
ലഗൻഷിയാണ്, ഫെസിലിറ്റി മാനേജ്മെന്റ് കമ്പനിയാണ്.
ഫെസിലിറ്റീസ് മാനേജ്മെന്റ് കമ്പനി അല്ലേ?
നിങ്ങളെന്തിലാ?
ഞാനൊരു വോൾട്ടേജ് എഞ്ചിനീയർ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ ഒരു കമ്പനിയില് പ്രൊജക്ട് മാനേജറായിട്ട് വർക്ക് ചെയ്യാം.
കൺസ്ട്രക്ഷൻ സൈഡാ, കോൺട്രാക്ടിങ്ങാ?
കോൺട്രാക്ടിങ്. നമ്മള് ക്യൂപി കയറാൻ വേണ്ടി മെയിൻ കോൺട്രാക്ടർമാരാ. മെയിനായിട്ട് ക്യൂപി, അതായത് 400 kV വരെയുള്ള ലൈൻ, ഇലക്ട്രിക്കൽ ലൈൻ എല്ലാം നമ്മൾ ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്. പ്രൈമറി സബ്സ്റ്റേഷൻ, സെക്കൻഡറി സബ്സ്റ്റേഷൻ എല്ലാം.
ഇൻസ്റ്റാളേഷൻ ആ സൈഡ് മാത്രം, അത് മെയിൻ്റെനൻസ് ആ ലൈനും ഉണ്ടോ?
എല്ലാം ഉണ്ട് ടോട്ടല്. മെയിനായിട്ട് പുതിയത് കൺസ്ട്രക്ഷൻ ആണ്. കാര്യമൊന്നുമില്ല, പിന്നെ വെറുതെ ഒരു
We're back. Sorry guys, I had to interrupt you, but I have to go back. So we're talking about communication. We're talking about now the cross-cultural communication. We all know that we are now operating in a multicultural world. Look at us, for example, in Qatar, more than 100 nationalities. We deal with these people of different nationalities and backgrounds every day. And this is just not particular to Qatar. It's everywhere across the globe now. So in this thing is that cross-cultural communication involves understanding the different cultures, languages, and custom of people from different countries. As I said, you need to understand the culture which you are addressing. Certain things can be offensive in one country, and whereas it might be very normal in some other country. So this is again a very important thing, addressing things such as sex, religion. These are sensitive things, and not everywhere they are dealt with equally. So the global challenges of the FM is to understand the cross-cultural context. Some of the possible constraints that need to be put into considerations are regulatory, legal, religion, language, norm, value, etc. So this is, for example, countries such as the States and big companies, when they want to go and deploy their staff into other countries, new territories, they do some sort of cultural background training. They inform their employees what to follow, what not to follow, what's acceptable here. Many people who came to Qatar even are having it, that in the Middle East you have to dress moderately, alcohol is frowned upon, pork is not something they eat, and so on. And this applies to different cultures. So understanding these differences is a key way for proper communication. The values are different from one country to the other. The cross-cultural communication, in another concept, there is different ways in which these organizations, the international organizations, operate. These are divided into, I'm trying to, give me 1 minute. So these are different orientations. So there is 4 organizations operating in a global context. They are ethnocentric, polycentric, geocentric, and region-centric. And ethnocentric, it believes that its home country is superior to any other country. Superior not in the sense of superiority, superior in the sense that if a product or a service performed well at home, it should also perform well abroad. So they don't understand the cultural differences and they don't care about them. Polycentric believes that each country is unique and that it allows its subsidiaries to have more control in developing strategies. So polycentric believes that each individual country is unique. And the region-centric sees the similarities and differences in world regions. So in here we're talking about countries. Here we're talking about regions. For example, many companies have the region-centric approach. In the sense, the product in the Middle East and North Africa, which they call the MENA region, is different from the product that they offer in Europe, different from the product they offer in Africa. They categorize the world into regions, or North America. Others believe that no, each country should have its own independency. Geocentric believes that the entire world is a potential market and strives to develop strategies that will work in every market. So it allows full reign over decision making at the local level. So this is the difference between the different organizations and how they look at it. So ethnocentric focus on the mother country, polycentric believes that each country is unique. Geocentric means that the world is one oyster. For example, Facebook, they have a full geocentric approach. When they roll their product, everywhere it is the same. They don't need to have it. Netflix, on the other hand, is a geocentric. They are addressing each region differently. Now you started seeing it even more prominently. Like last Eid, they started opening Arabic shows on the region. So these are the four different things. Cultural diversity, as I said, cultural diversity is richness, and it's a format of appreciating differences in the individuals. These differences can be based on gender, age, sex, ethnicity, sexual orientation, social status. That's why you find these multinationals, they seek cultural diversity. Why? Because it enriches the company. It enriches the way of thinking. When you're having a multinational organization that wants to address the whole world, let's say Procter & Gamble, they make shampoos, soaps, shaving cream, and whatever. And they are the global leader in that. And for them to understand each and every market, they deploy people from the local market. And once the people are from the local market and different backgrounds, they have an insight into how these people think. For example, an Arabic guy will not look at their shampoo needs such as an European person or such as an Indian person. Language is a very important part of communication, and that's why it is best to learn the second language on which you are operating with. And this you can, because we are talking in the context in Qatar, you find out that talking Arabic is an advantage here. It enables people to understand more the culture. It gives business and career advantages. Not only here, let's say if you want to deal with China, here at least people speak English and you can communicate with them. Whereas if you talk about countries such as China, it's a very big advantage if when you go there, you understand Mandarin, because you will be able to understand more the culture. You will be able not to rely on interpreters and translators, and you will have a communication advantage. Other divisive thing is religion, and of course this is known to everyone because religion has a huge impact on the culture. It involves how we dress, what food we take, what ritual and holidays. I mentioned earlier, for example, alcohol is frowned upon here, and here maybe you can talk about having more than one wife, polygamy, whereas if you address the same situation in the European community, you will look at it as being frowned upon. So you see the frames of reference are totally different, and you have to understand these differences. You have to respect these differences. Statute and regulatory limits. The organization operates in a global settings, so the laws and regulations change from one country to the other, and a facility manager should understand what involves in what country and in the other. For example, some countries dictate the amount of office space per employee. Even here in Qatar, if you are handling FM and you want to do labor accommodation, there is regulations based on that. How many square meters per each individual, and what kind of facilities should be there. Cross-cultural communication strategies. To have effective and efficient communication in a cross-cultural communication, an important part is to ask questions and receive feedback two-way. Avoid stereotyping, avoid reaching a conclusion, avoid judging a group based on your own opinions. Avoid saying, oh, because he is Arabic, he has this behavior. Not all your fingers are equal. You should understand the diversity, appreciate it, and understand communication in that basis. Be flexible and adaptable. Flexibility enables you, for example, let's say when you go to China, people might find it difficult to like the food there, let's say. If you are flexible and adaptable and understand the culture and understand and appreciate the differences between the cultures, you will be able to blend in better. You will be able to communicate with the people better. Be mindful and respect someone else's time. The way we perceive time, again, is different from in culture to culture. For example, if you tell someone in Germany, I'm meeting you at 5:10, at 5:10 you are expected to be there. Whereas if you say to someone here, I'm meeting you at 5, you will not even say I'm meeting you at 5:10. You will say I will meet you at 5:30. So the way we perceive time here is different. And this is perfectly normal, the way different people perceive things. It's important, as we said, to understand the language, practice active listening, personal respect. You should respect. So in a nutshell, you should respect the differences, understand the differences. If someone has differences from you, that doesn't mean that they are stupid or their culture is stupid. And unfortunately, I hear some people saying that, oh, they don't understand. No, it's just simply different. Cultures are different. We're living in a multicultural place. All of us come from different backgrounds. Many things in our lives, the shape, the way we are lived, male or female, we didn't select these. We were just born into these conditions, and we can all still communicate effectively. If you come from that mindset, you will be able to communicate with anyone. Emergent issues in FM communication. So as we said, IFMA is up to date. IFMA is always taking everything into consideration. Something that came recently on the communication scape is social media, for example, or electronic media. What we're doing now is communicating through electronic media. A few years back, maybe the bandwidth which we used to have will not be enough for us to communicate this easily. So in a way, this is an efficient and faster form of distributing information. As I said, the example of the email, rather than informing everyone or sending a memo like it used to happen 20 years ago, now you just shoot an email to everyone and everyone will look at it. And now everyone will have it at home and with their email on their mobiles. There are numerous advantages, but again, there are disadvantages. Messages may be distorted. We all seen that when sometimes you will be sending someone an email and they'll understand it in their own different context, because, as I said, people reading the same messages will look into it differently. And it's a one-way communication versus the traditional way when you're talking to someone. So it has its own challenges. Again, the bombardment and the sheer volume of messages and the sheer volume of emails had people leading emails sometimes dealing with it not really as serious as they should be. You find people sending emails sometimes for silly stuff or even fighting over an email, which is, again, not a good way for effective communication. Communication privacy. Workplace privacy is an employee's right. But the employer has also the right to monitor their employees' activities. So when you're talking about a work context, you have the right for your own privacy in your communication. But again, whatever you do, you might be liable for. You have to be careful about that. So in case a facility manager assumes that staff is using organizational technological assets, some companies even have direct policies for that. For example, some organizations will say it is allowed for personal use, casual use. I've read one policy, casual use of email and mobile phone for personal manners is acceptable, but they put a but or no. First of all, we have the right to monitor all these communications. You know that in your emails, everything is being copied to the company's server and they are able to access that. And second is that you cannot be abusing it. You cannot use your personal email to communicate all the time and address personal matters, or you cannot use company time and vehicle to do inappropriate things. So if someone is utilizing the organizational assets in an inappropriate manner and not associated with the company business, the FM should involve the HR department for appropriate disciplinary action. We talk now about writing. Again, writing such as verbal communication, such as any other form of communication, you have to understand who are you talking to. If I'm talking to engineers and I'm an engineer, it's different if I'm talking to business owners who want different things, different if I'm talking to a financial institution such as the bank or a regular supplier, small scale supplier. So the communication should be different. So you should be audience focused, whether verbal or non-verbal. Always start with your audience, understand your audience. Choosing the right word. Sometimes people are over eloquent in the way they write or they talk. They really don't simplify things. They think it's cool to use difficult words, but okay, that can be a hindrance to communication if people don't understand your messages. Focus on the key message, revise, stay on message. Again, the 6 C's of communication: complete, concise, contextual, and so on. That also applies for writing. And it says use active voice, use plain words, vary the sentence length. Don't be monotonous. So these again are simple concepts which we learned even in middle school, but here they are emphasizing them on communication. You should have proper beginning, middle, and endings. Better to keep information in bullets, things that you need to highlight. You organize your content. As I said, many times you see emails from people with no clear requirement or no clear image. You have to be concise and clear to what you're trying to communicate. If you want to emphasize something, highlight it. The readability should be there, and proper transitions between sentences, between paragraphs, and so on. Emails, memos, and letters. So effective and efficient writing brings positive business relationships. And email is now the most common and it's the most efficient. So efficient, it means that it's cost effective and you can, sitting in your 5-minute break, you can email colleagues or whatever. Memos. These are memos. It's a brief message sent from one person to the other within the organization. With emails now, memos are becoming less and less common, but they are still there. Sometimes the memo will be circulated telling so and so left us, so and so joined us. A business letter is a more formal document, often sent from one company to the other. Please don't unmute yourself if you are not talking, because you will have background noise and which is affecting everyone else. Tips for writing a business letter. So, to write a business letter, be persuasive, proofread your letter. And informal communication, such as business letters, you have to be very careful what you write. And it's not like writing a casual email, because it can have large consequences. Let's say You are talking with a contractor and you are informing them of their breach of contract. You have to be very formal in your address, very clear, evidence supported, because this can again be a basis for you to go to a court. So proofreading, it means making sure that there are no grammatical mistakes and avoid a lasting negative impression. This, for example, regarding resumes. You will leave a horrible impression if you send a resume in which there are very serious grammatical mistakes or improper formatting. Select a professional letterhead design, use a professional tone, be friendly but more professional. So this is again some mistakes some people make, is that when they are, let's say they are having a dispute with the supplier, you can say you are having a dispute, but you have to always maintain professionalism and manners. Use standard business letter format. Use few words and colors to emphasize in the text, and try to, there's no need, if you need to highlight something, you can underline it. Write clearly and be straightforward. Another form of non-verbal written communication is a business plan and a report. So what's the difference between a plan and a report in general? A plan is something leading. A report is something lagging. So a plan is something before it happens, you are making the plan. A report, you are reporting on after something has happened. So a business plan, let's say, is a written document that describes how a business is going to achieve its goals. It lays out a written plan from the operational, financial, and marketing point of view. You can create a business plan as an IFMA manager on why, for example, you want to hire, you want to buy man lifts to access
social distancing at a time when coronavirus cases are
rather than rent it. So you develop a business plan. You talk about the financial things and the operational things. A report is an important part of planning, but it's a lagging thing. It's after something that has happened. Examples of business reports include marketing research results, customer service reviews. They can include financial reports. So you can say, okay, show me the report on how we have done in terms of utility bill utilization in the last 10 years across our facilities. So this is a report. A good business plan should have the following constituents: clear statement of purpose, supporting facts, recommendations, risks, and actions. So in this, an example has been given on a business plan of the replacement of 2 chillers. Okay, so the statement of purpose mentions this clearly. So like this business plan is for the replacement of 2 chillers, 350 TR, to reduce maintenance and operational costs. Supporting facts, why we want that? Because let's say we are having higher downtime and we are paying a lot for repair costs. Recommendations, we are recommending the installation of a new high efficiency chillers. Risks, the risks cannot be replaced simultaneously and the replacement will take 1 month. Maybe this will delay, maybe we will stay without a chiller for some time. Actions, what can be done to mitigate these risks? So for example, a portable AC unit with an electrical generator will be rented to ensure that the required cooling needs are not effective. A report, again, has a clear structure supported by facts. It should give a clear idea on the current scenario and compare it to the plan. A typical report will have a front, body, and back. The front, usually we have the title page. This is so-and-so report. Abstract, or what we call as an executive summary, for example. Okay, this report talks about consumption of electricity in our so-and-so facility in Doha for the period from 2016 to 2017, and so on. Someone has a question. Let me see. Is a business plan something like a feasibility study? Feasibility study can be a part, is part of a business plan usually, but it's something very similar. So you are saying is that usually a feasibility study, it comes and details why shall we do this project. A business plan can include a feasibility study. So it's something very similar, you are right. The body of the report should include the introduction, methods, results, conclusions, and recommendations. And in the end, you write the summary. This is our this, whatever, and the list of symbol references and appendices. After we've covered the business and the written things, we come to presentations. Presentations. Again, like with everything else, the way we communicate, for you to communicate effectively, you have to understand who is your audience. And even in your audience, you have different learning styles. We as human beings have different learning styles. Some people like to see things, and this is what we call a visual learner. They have, so it's how we are built. They can remember things. They have a visual memory. It's what we call a visual memory. Others will have an auditory memory, or this is how they like to learn. So prefer to hear information. Okay, this is how they process information. Other people have a kinesthetic. Kinesthetic is show me how it's done. So like they touch it and catch the information. So they like to taking notes, for example. So for example, I myself, I'm a little bit kinesthetic. I'm visual and kinesthetic. So what does that mean? Visual is that I prefer to see information. I prefer, rather than to hear it from someone, I prefer to have a look at it, read it, for example. Kinesthetic, I always write notes, but frankly, I never come back to these notes. What does that mean? Is that my mind, when I write something, it registers it. So this is the way I like to learn. And I'm sure all of you have different ways to do that. So when you're making a good presentation, you have to take these three things into considerations. So you have to understand that some people understand to look at visual. And for example, in this lecture, that's why we have on each slide, we have a different visual so that you don't get bored. And for that, for the visual learners will understand this. Auditory, so you are listening to something. So these people prefer to look at podcasts, videos, oral presentations. They prefer to hear things. Kinesthetic, as we said, is that they prefer to walking meetings, role-playing. Kinesthetic learners, for example, for sales, you can do a role-playing module. Or if you're training an employee on the maintenance of something, you can go and do it in front of them, or you can give them the tools and you do it with them. So this is a kinesthetic way of doing things. Someone has a question? Guys, please, Nwaribe and others, if you don't want to talk, don't unmute yourself. Please. Feel free to open the mic and talk, but if you don't want to talk, don't do that. Ahmad, go ahead. You have a question?
Question about kinesthetic. About kinesthetic, is it like practical? Yani learn by doing?
It's not about being practical, yes or no. This is how they register information. Just
what I mean is kinetic is movable, yani it should be energetic.
No. It's not about only moving. I said kinesthetic is doing things. For example, okay, some people you can go and let's say I want to explain how to talk to a client. Okay, I'm doing a sales presentation or to a team. Okay, and I'm saying to them how to talk to a client. Some people will understand if I show them charts and things, they will remember it and register it in their heads. Others will prefer to look at hear podcasts or YouTube videos. And others, and usually an effective way is to combine the three into one. Others, for example, will prefer to do it. So in the sense, let's say if I want to train my salespeople, typically I will go and give them a presentation about sales. I'll give them maybe some material for them to read. And then I will go with them to visit clients where they go and sit with me and see me how I do it. This happens in most professions. That's why if you are an engineer, you expected part of your training is to do what we call stage, or what you call hired as an apprentice. Okay, so this is the kinesthetic. Or you go, doctors do that, and in the last few years they go and work with another doctor. Let's say surgeons, they have to learn it by doing it themselves. This is what kinesthetic means.
Thank you.
Ammar, you had a question?
So that kinesthetic is like some sort of brainstorming.
Yeah, brainstorming, because it's interactive. So this is a kinesthetic way. Yes, it's a two-way, it's an interactive process.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So, do we call it internship, maybe?
Yeah. An internship is a part of kinesthetic training, because you received all kinds of, this is the word that slipped my mind. So I was talking the French word, stage or training. So yes, internship is a kinesthetic thing, and which is required by many professions, so that you can cover the theoretical knowledge into practical again. Okay, so developing an effective presentation, you should again identify the purpose, understand the audience, and you see that these are universal. Wherever we're doing about communication, we are coming back to them. Start with the clients, the recipients, see what do they understand and what they don't. For example, we're preparing this, all of you, the presentation is designed in such a way that you have a minimum level of understanding English, and most of you are college educated. So this has been taken into mind when designing this. Otherwise, you will not be in this class, and otherwise the format would have been much more different. Determine your style, what kind of style you want to be, a visual, freedom, instructor, coach, storytelling, and so on. Decide on the content, organize the presentation, prepare effective visuals, proof and revise. If you are having an important presentation, whether if it is your final year project, rehearse, you have to rehearse it, you have to try it. So it's a good way of developing an effective presentation. And you should be doing it to avoid stage fright and determine the availability of the allotted time. If you have done a public presentation, or if you intend to do a public presentation, some of the tips they say, okay, go and do it at home, see how many minutes does it take, maybe go 1 hour earlier, get yourself familiar with the surroundings, and even try to do it. Present after you've developed it. Bear in mind the audience from the start to the end of the presentation. As the audience is not expected to remember everything, highlight the most important parts and keep it short and simple. So that's why, let's say here when I'm presenting, I'm highlighting the important things. The longer the presentation, the higher the risk of boredom. This goes unsaid. I hope you guys are not sleeping. Elements of effective and productive meetings. Meetings, we all conduct them. Sometimes they are totally useless. So productive and effective meetings, rarely I've seen effective meetings, but sometimes you do that. A proper effective meeting is a meeting which really has a purpose, has an agenda, and has the proper aspects. And here, for example, the rules for an effective meeting. includes having different roles. These roles can be taken by one person or more than one person. Okay. So there should be a chairperson or a leader. He's the one who convenes the meeting, exercises the authority to make decisions. A facilitator keeps discussion and decision-making processes moving along. Recorder, it means someone who takes the notes, note-taking. Timekeeper reminds the group when time almost up for a given item. Meeting participants, the other parts of the team who contribute and participate in the meeting. So a good meeting will have a proper preparation, proper conduction of the actual meeting, follow up. For example, you make an agenda. The meeting today is to discuss the demobilization or the mobilization of our team to go and replace the chiller. And the agenda will be discussed as the way that we should phase out the project itself and the different milestones. In the actual meeting, you will allot 1 hour for the meeting. The first half will be to discuss this. The second half will be to discuss this. Follow up after the meeting is finished. You send everyone, let's say in the meeting, you have agreed on a timeline. You have agreed who should do what. And then you send them the minutes of the meeting as a follow-up and to make sure that they are contributing this. Ground rules are meeting rules which you consider during your meeting. So different companies have different, or different groups have different ground rules. They can be diverse. For example, some organizations have meetings in such a way where, so that everyone has the free right to talk. Only the person holding a stick, for example, can talk, a certain stick. And then if someone else needs to talk, they need to raise their hand and hold that stick. So these are some of the ground rules that can be established for an effective meeting. The facility manager in a meeting can be of any role. He can be the chairman or he can be the facilitator. So a facilitator, to be effective, should act as a neutral, should check for agreement, encourages everyone to speak. A good meeting should have only the intended audience. Many poor meetings, you go there and you find the manager calling for everyone, and then 15, 20 people show up, and maybe 3, 4 who talk, and the rest are just watching. So this is a waste of time, frankly. I've seen some organizations in the UAE, for example, they have, I'm not sure, in Qatar I've not seen, but maybe, they have standing meetings. There are no tables and chairs, just standing tables. Who will write the minutes of meeting? As I said, it's in the definition, it's the scribe. Timekeeper, the recorder, the scribe, would write the minutes of meeting. The facility manager can be the scribe. So all these roles can be one person, or they can be more than one person. So sometimes we nominate someone to write the minutes of the meeting. Encourage participants to speak, establish the ground rules, not allowing someone to dominate the meeting, ensure active participation, help reach a consensus, maintain active participation, maintain the focus on the meeting agenda. Again, another thing that happens in meetings is that one time you will be talking about sales, and then you end up talking about the HR policy regarding something, regarding the incentive for the sales. So this is very important that you stay on the topic. Manage conflict if it arises. Conflict can be healthy if it's constructive. And a good prepare, is it good for everyone to participate? Yes, definitely. Then why there should be a meeting? If it's supposed to be a one-way thing, then it's not a meeting. Then it's a presentation. A good meeting is a meeting in which everyone has a role to contribute to the meeting. If they're just a recipient, then there is no need for a meeting. You can do a presentation for them. I hope that Giza answers your question. Virtual meetings, we're seeing them over and over now. There are 3 types of virtual meetings. Teleconference, it's like meeting over the phone. They were very common previously, but now we are having video conferencing like the one which we are having now, or we are even, and when the COVID-19, most meetings become like that. Web conference is something like we are doing now. It's not just only the voice and the video. Voice, video, material. I'm showing you a presentation, and we are having chat, and people are texting me, and so on. It can be Alam, it can be anyone who write the meeting minutes. I said it's a position. It's just like this is a role. It can be filled by anyone. The CEO can be writing the minutes of meeting. It doesn't make any difference, but it's highlighting who are the components of a meeting. So it can be a secretary. Let's say you don't have secretary, and sometimes we'll have a meeting. I will ask, let's say, anyone to write the meetings, or even sometimes I will be asking for a meeting regarding something. I will write the meetings and send it to everyone. So it just like this is like a skeleton of how a meeting should be. Virtual meeting, the best practices for a virtual meeting are those of a regular meeting. You should be considerate, you should be on time, you should check the sound regularly during the meeting, ensure that everything material is there, introduce yourself the first time you speak. This is, again, when you are having teleconference, sometimes, you will talk to someone and tell them, this is the etiquette, best practice. Okay, I'm going to be putting you now on a speaker phone. So and so are in the room, and we need to discuss this. It happens. And let's say when you want to talk and you say, hi, other person, I am so and so, and then you start talking if they're not able to see you. Try to minimize background noise and interruptions. Follow meeting practices as inducted earlier. Negotiations. We are always negotiating. You negotiate with your wife, you negotiate with your kids, you negotiate with your boss, you negotiate with your suppliers. Wherever there's a transaction, wherever there are 2 people are interacting, there is negotiation. So negotiation is a method by which people settle differences while avoiding disputes and arguments. So negotiation aim is that to reach a middle way. You can be negotiating with your friend, where shall you go for dinner? So this is a way. So you are initiating conversation to reach consensus. Consensus is means that both parties agree on something. In an IFM concept, you will be negotiating with many people. You will be negotiating with building tenants and occupants. Let's say someone is having a leak in the lower floor and it's 12 a.m. Not 12 a.m. It's, let's say, 1 a.m. and then they call you and you tell them, okay, you send someone, and then they close the water and you negotiate with them. Please, we cannot fix it today. It's very late. I don't have the teams. Can we come tomorrow morning? Can you live without water? This is a form of negotiation. You can be negotiating with contractors regarding prices, timelines, with employees, financial institutions. You're trying to negotiate a loan, labor unions, and so on. And with your management, you are negotiating also. Like your management tell you, okay, we need to finish this chiller replacement in 2 weeks. You tell them it's not possible. Please give me more time for me to have a good job. So you are negotiating. In negotiation itself, there is influence and persuasion. So influence is the power to make others do what you want and agree with your opinions. Influence is something like, let's say, more of mandated. If, let's say, you are the boss of someone, your leverage in negotiation is higher. You tell them, okay, I need this finished within 1 week. They try to negotiate and say 10 days. You tell them, no, this is urgent. The client wants it within 1 week. So this is influence. Persuasion is a more political way. So you can influence the people who are under you, but let's say when you're talking to your management or when you're talking to another department which is parallel to you, you have to use persuasion. You have to convince them. So you cannot influence your boss and tell him, no, I cannot do it in 1 week, I need 10 days. You try to persuade them. So persuasion is, a facility manager should know the basic elements. So credibility is an important part of persuasion, effective communication skills, and understanding the audience. So there are people to have soft copies of this material. Yeah, Kiza, there is let me look into the questions here one by one. First of all, yeah, Kiza, you want the presentation. All of the presentations are online and through the shared folder which you have. If you don't have access to it, ask the team which registered you and the administration team, and they can help you with that. You will have these presentations. Is negotiation like discussion? Negotiation, you're trying to reach to a solution. Discussing, yes, you are negotiating. This is a part of it. You are trying to negotiate something. They are very similar. You use discussions to reach, to negotiate. What I understand is to reach the agreement. I don't know who Alam was saying. If you guys feel that you need to talk, just please unmute yourself and talk. It might be a more effective way of communication. If you have questions, you can unmute and talk. I really have no problem with that. I only have an issue is that when I'm talking and then someone opens the mic, and just for the sake of opening the mic. So if you want to ask me a question, you can just unmute and ask me.
Yes, sir. Hi. What I understand regarding the negotiation is between the two parties have reached an agreement, a mutual agreement that we both agree. We both agree
yes.
on something like that.
Yes. This is
okay. Thank you.
So this is what mentioned here. Negotiation is a method by which people settle differences while avoiding dispute, and negotiation helps to reach a consensus. Consensus means agreement. This is
Correct.
what it means. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Ammar, please go ahead.
Yes, please again, because I just lost. The difference between influence and persuasion again.
Yeah.
Please.
Influence, it means that you are influencing something. You can easily influence your children. You can tell them, okay, khalas, you need to sleep at 8, you need to sleep at 8. Finish. It's a one way. You influence. It's a directive, not a two-way channel. It's more that you have power over them. You have power over your children. You have power over your subordinates. You really don't need to negotiate in the same way in which you are trying to persuade. So
it's like we started in this session. It's like from top to bottom, right? It's a communication from top to bottom.
I will, for the sake of this, I will use the Arabic word. So persuasion means al-iqna'. You're trying to convince someone of something. You're trying to persuade. Al-influence, ta'thir. So you are having an impact on someone. If you have a role on top of that person, you have a higher degree of influence on them, right?
So that's mean influence. It's like forcing to apply.
Yes, it's a more powerful than persuading. You know?
Okay.
All right. So when
I have a question. Is it direct forcing or indirect forcing? I mean, influencing. Is it like you have to do this, or by letting them somehow, like psychologically, following the way that you are doing the thing, so they are influenced by your way and they are doing it? So it's a bit of like, to me, I don't know, by my definition, it's indirectly forcing them.
No. Influence is in the sense that you can influence your subordinates. You are the manager of a division, okay? You can influence the decision. You tell them tomorrow everyone should be there at 8:30 and complete the project. You can, the way you select to communicate with them is different, but you have this influence power over them. It's a power. Persuasion, let's say with a client, you cannot persuade, you have to be more political with the client. You cannot force a client that no, let's say you are doing FM facilities for clients, and then the client tells you, sorry, you told me that you're gonna come 10 a.m. tomorrow morning to watch my sink. I cannot see you at that time. So you try to convince them, no, sir, please let someone be there because we have a tight schedule, and if we don't do it, it will take another month for us to be able to come back to you. Whereas if, for example, you're dealing with someone which, no, you have to do it at 10. It's a different thing depending on your relationship to the other party. Ahmad is asking, is negotiation should be ended agreement or not? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Many times you reach a deadlock. Deadlock, it means is a stalemate, and no one is willing to give in. And that's why you can escalate and take other forms of, that's why legal cases happens. Sometimes you go and negotiate with someone, and then, or let's say you lose a business. Let's say you're negotiating with someone to take this job, and they tell you, you quoted for 5 million, we want it for 3 million. You try to reach an agreement, and then you don't reach an agreement. Then you forget about the deal. So it's not mandated to reach an agreement. Okay, we now go to copyright. What is copyright? Copyright is, as a creator of work, you have exclusive privileges to control what people and cannot do with your work. Copyright, you see that C mark. It's taken much more seriously in the Western civilizations. Why? Because, and it's taken less seriously in this part of the world and other parts of the world. Why? Because in these parts of the world, we don't create much original content. We don't spend much money on research and development and things like that. So copyrights really are not very much respected here, although some copyrights are. Let's say music copyrights are. These countries have gone a long way about that. So this is copyright. The copyright is that as the creator of a work, you have the privileges of controlling what people can and cannot do with your work. Hefty fines can be imposed for copyright infringement. It restricts how faculty can use copyright works in their writing, research, and teaching. It shows appreciation and respect to the originator. Original author of creator of work has the following rights. He has the right to distribute copies, prepare derivative works, to publicly display the work. So he has full control. If I'm someone who has created a song or made a book, I can decide if I want to make it private and I will go and patent it and not share it with everyone, or I can decide to make it public for everyone to use and utilize. Copyright infringement, an example, a noble example of copyrights that were, or patents that were made for public use. Volvo created the 3-point, what you call seatbelt system, is what we call the 3-point, 1, 2, 3. Okay, this is something that they could have patented and made it only for them, and if you want to use that license, you have to pay money. But because of their belief in safety, they gave it to everyone for free. So everyone, they made it an open copyright. Anyone can go and utilize it, and they don't need to pay them something. On the other hand, you have Apple. For example, if you have to use their charger cable, every manufacturer should pay Apple a fee for that. So as an original creator of this, you can decide what you want to do with it. And in Western civilizations, there is much more protection for copyrights. And that's why, for example, dead singers still are able to generate money. Elvis Presley has died 40, 50 years ago. I don't know when he died. And still till now, his heirs and are still collecting money because of the copyright principles. Because every time someone utilizes his songs, they have to pay something. Copyright infringement, it means that when you break the copyright, it's a federal offense in the state. It's very serious. It's a federal offense. Cause of action that occurs when copyrighted material is publicly displayed or reproduced or made without copyright owner permission. So let's say you have now generated a book, and then I go and it's a copyrighted book, and I go and just photocopy it and put it online. Or you have made a movie. That's why you don't see on YouTube movies, because they protect the copyright of the original creator. Because if you want to watch a movie, you have to pay for it. Fair use is a doctrine in the US that allows limited use of copyright material without going back to the original owner. So what does fair use mean? Fair use, let's say if you are having a book and you are teaching in a class, and you can photocopy 3-4 pages and for you to distribute and highlight something to the students. Okay.
Hello, I have one doubt here about what is the difference between copyright and royalty. Sorry, royalty that is paid for some acts, and copyright.
Copyright is the general umbrella which covers royalties. Copyright, you have the copyright. You can decide that you don't want to charge the royalties for this. Royalty is something you pay the creator for you to utilize their original copyright. So let's say that I have produced a book on thermodynamics in the States, and I allow someone in India to print it for free without paying me, let's say. I'm waiving my rights. Or I tell them, okay, you can print it, but you have to pay me a royalty fee.
Okay, right.
Okay, all right. So fair use is a way in which you can use copyrighted material without coming back, but there are certain regulations. So it is, if the benefit is non-commercial, the benefit will not diminish the commercial value of the original content. So if I have a book and I want to take 2-3 pages to explain to my colleagues, I don't really need to go, and if someone catches me, I will not go to jail because it's not for commercial use. But if, for example, I photocopy the book and start selling it, then no, I'm in a serious copyright infringement. Another thing in which the American laws allow people to use copyrighted material is when you are using it for parody or criticism or commentary. For example, you find many songs which they go and comedy shows go and distort them. And this is covered by the US laws. You don't need to, if you're making a parody or fun of a song, you don't need to go back to the original author and tell them I need to utilize the same music. And fair use applies when only a small portion of the original material is used, like a few pages, but not the whole book. Public domain, things in public domain are, public name is not protected by intellectual property law, such as patent, trademark, or public right. It is considered publicly owned material, not of an individual or organization. So public domain. For example, now common in software, we have something which we call open source. Open source is they create the code and then they put it in the open source, like Chrome. Chrome, for example, the web browser is an open source code. That's why you go and find many versions of Chrome. Android is an open source. What does that mean? Is that if you go and utilize Chrome and you can go and improve on it and whatever, you don't need to go back to Google, who is the original creator for this. And the public domain involves things which are old. For example, the works of Shakespeare are in the public domain. The works of Aristotle are in the public domain. The works of Stalin and Karl Marx are in the public domain. No one owns the copyright for those. And in general, work published after 1977 is not considered public domain until, so there's an expiry date usually, until 120 years from the date of creation, 95 from the date of publication, and 7 years after the death of the author or works for hire, and so on. International copyright, there is no single international copyright. So there is no place where you can go and register something and you say that this is original content and it applies to the whole world. It doesn't work like that. That's why you find sometimes, if I don't know if you notice in the newspaper, you will find that announcement of so and so name under so and so. It will be something international, but they pay someone, they pay lawyers to go and publish it in all over the world that this is their copyrighted material, and they ensure the implication within that country. Okay, so there is no single international copyright law, but there are some conventions in which common things happen between the countries. So there are some treaties such as the Berne Convention for the Literacy and Artistic Works and the Buenos Aires Convention. Some countries don't recognize copyrights in certain things. For example, India doesn't recognize medicine patents. They consider it in the public domain, no matter where you make them. And they do that because of the intention to secure that everyone has access to cheap medication. Ahmad Abdul Rahman, you had a question?
Yes, one question. Please correct me if I am wrong. What I know about copyright that it's limited by a certain time. This means that, for instance, if even any product have copyright, after 10 years or 5 years, it will be in the public domain for all. Is it right or not?
It's mentioned literally here in the second paragraph. Yes, you are right. So there's a limit on this, and there is difference depending on the country, depending on what is it, and so on. That's why, for example, certain products were not patented. I give you two examples. You know WD-40?
No, actually, what is?
The WD-40, the spray there's a WD-40 spray. It's very famous all over the world. This is for dust removal and so on.
It's not NASA invention, sir.
Huh?
That's used by the W40, researched by NASA.
I don't know if it's researched by NASA. The WD-40 is that spray. Anyhow, forget it. Polaroid, you know Polaroid, if you remember Polaroid cameras, they were not patented. Why? Because they thought that, okay, after we publish the patent, after several years, we have to go and make it public. And they didn't want so. They believed in their product so much. For example, Coca-Cola. The mix of Coca-Cola is not patented because the moment you patent it, after several years, it will be in the public domain. So that's why they kept it a secret. The mix of KFC, for example, again, it's not patented. It's kept as a secret. They call it as a secret. Ammar, you're raising your hand?
Yes. Just excuse my ignorance. As a facility manager, what's the importance for the copyright? The copyright is related for something like for softwares, for books, for music, for movies, something like that. So, as a facility manager, what's the importance for me about the copyright, or how how I should apply it in my career or on my job? If you can just explain the importance of the copyright.
Yeah, the copyright, see, they are putting it as part of communication. They are putting it as, let's say, when you are communicating, when you are making a presentation, when you are doing something, to be careful of the copyright. It's just like not something very central, but just to be careful on what items that you are utilizing. And for example, not to utilize pirated software and so on.
Yeah, so that means, for example, if I'm using some reference, so I need to mention this reference in my presentation, for example.
For example, yes. So these are general principles in covering effective communication. They're just putting it in the end to highlight that this is something that you should take consideration of.
Okay, clear.
I just wanted to have a clear idea, hello, on about the example.
Yeah, go ahead.
About the example about the KFCC, for example, as you said, it's a secret, but not copyright. So if the secret, so it means that we are legally authorized to copy the content of that one without the consent or without thinking of any legal consequences. We can easily use it.
No.
But you will not know how to get it because it's a secret.
Okay, but in a way, I mean, yeah.
Okay, so many people claim that they got the copyright or the formula for Coca-Cola, but they never did.
Makes sense. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Actually, there's a famous story, I think, about Pepsi and Coca-Cola. Someone stole the trade secret and tried to call Pepsi, and then Pepsi went and talked to Coca-Cola about it, and they threw him in jail. Yeah, someone else had a question?
Yes, I have a question with regards to the IP, the intellectual property.
Yeah.
Right? And then also the plagiarism. Is it part of this also?
Yeah, this is intellectual. Copyright is intellectual property.
How about the plagiarism?
Plagiarism is utilizing the work of others without referring to it. So you're not recognizing the original person content. This is what's plagiarism.
Okay. Thank you.
Fine. Stakeholders, managing stakeholders. So who are stakeholders? What's the definition of stakeholders? Stakeholders are people who are, or organizations or bodies who are directly or indirectly affected by your work. And in FM context, many people are your stakeholders. They are the visitors, they are the company owners, they are the shareholders, they are the regular authorities. Let me, for example, give an example of stakeholders. You are managing, let's say, the facility for Hamad Hospital. Who are your stakeholders? There'll be hundreds of stakeholders. Your stakeholders include the government of Qatar. It includes the people who are operating the hospital. It includes the patients. It includes the suppliers. It includes the regulatory authorities. It includes Kahrama. It includes Wuqud. It includes many bodies. So these are people. And in the definition of stakeholders, there are some who are primary stakeholders, people who are directly influenced, and secondary stakeholders, people who are, okay, they are not as important to your decision making. So, and usually whenever you're doing something, you should take your stakeholders into considerations. So managing expectations and managing the stakeholders includes, first of all, coming with a stakeholder register, registering who all are your stakeholders, and then make a management strategy for that and a project management plan. And you should be effectively communicating with the stakeholders. This we will cover again in the section on project management. Project management, those of you who are PMP certified will know that stakeholder management is a key part of the project management, and usually there's a stakeholder management plan. So managing stakeholder expectations is the process of working and communicating with stakeholders to address their issues and meet their needs as they occur. So failing to meet the stakeholder expectations can have very negative impacts on you as a facility manager. Let's say that you are working on renovating something and you didn't take care that the stakeholder, let's say you're renovating a building in Hamad and you didn't give a damn about the patients there, and you are hammering and breaking 24/7 using heavy equipment and material. You're going to be stopped at some point because you didn't take these stakeholders into consideration, and so on. Typical steps for developing a communication plan. So this usually involves communicating with them. A communication plan is a plan on how to communicate, what to communicate, and when to communicate information. So to develop a proper communication plan, you have to determine the purpose, the audience, and what budget you have, what resources you have, how shall I communicate with them, and what information should I provide them. Evaluate how well you carry your plan and how well it works. Situation appropriate media. So medium, we talked about medium initially when we talked about the message and the medium. And the medium is the way which we are conveying our message. Okay, there is two types. There's what something we call mechanical media, and don't think it's mechanical from mechanical engineering. It's a different thing. And the physical media. So a physical media is something which you interact with. So physical means there's a physical interaction in you as self. So like meetings, video or web conferences, word of mouth, there is some physical interaction somewhere. Mechanical media, there is no presence for you in meeting it. Like let's say email, bulletin, newspapers, personal letters, social media, and text. These are the two main categories of media. And that is it for today's session. Usually, as I said earlier, at the end of each session, we will have a list of questions, which we will go through and solving them. Please, when I'm solving this, you can, I need you to participate in this and to provide answers as we move along. So this one of the question is that a facility manager assigns tasks to direct reports. So a facility manager, divide the question usually, he assigns tasks to direct reports. The direction of the flow of the and flow of communication is what? It's downward, upward, lateral, network.
Upward.
Downward. Downward.
It's a manager who is assigning tasks to his reports. So from manager to reports, how it is? It's a downward. This is a very clear. Which of the following best describes a I muted everyone because again, some guys are having background noise. You can unmute if you want to answer. Which of the following best describes a potential barrier to effective communication? What's a potential barrier for effective communication? So we're talking about the potential barrier. So this is a keyword. Potential. What is it, a potential barrier?
Meeting in a room with poor lighting and uncomfortable seating.
Okay. See, what we usually do is that
B,
we go
C, and D. All three, B, C, and D.
We will go through them one by one. Providing direct and specific feedback. No, this is something, a very effective communication, right? When you're having feedback. So this is eliminated as an option, right? So this we eliminate. We go to the second thing. Controlling information flow to curb information overload. If you are only conveying the right information and you are not bombarding the recipient with information, is this something good or bad? This is something good. So if this is something good, you should eliminate it from the options. This is not a barrier, because if you are, let's say you, in a typical example, your boss is telling you to report the progress on a project, and then you tell him, today 5 people came 10 minutes late, and then we went and we had lunch at so-and-so time. You are really throwing too much unnecessary information. And if you are selecting what you need to send, you are communicating effectively. Item number C, meeting in a room with poor lighting and uncomfortable seating. This can be the answer. We will see the last option, communicating with community stakeholders through social media. No, when you are communicating with stakeholders, you are being effective. So the only question remaining is C. Which of the following action demonstrates active listening? Active listening.
Telling the speaker how you handled a similar situation.
You are not listening. You are providing feedback now. You are not listening to them. So this I will put it as a it's a good thing, but it's not about, the question is about active listening. Let's look at the other options. Okay, the other options. Forming assumptions. So let's say sometimes we mark the question as half correct. Let's say potential. So yes, no, or maybe. Let's put this as a maybe. Forming assumptions about what the speaker is thinking while speaking. This is a clear no. This is a very bad way of communicating. Thinking of counter arguments that you will make when the speaker finishes. This is, again, you are not listening. You are forming arguments. This is wrong. Showing attentiveness through body language. Is this a part of active listening or not? This is the correct one, much more correct than this one. This is you're providing feedback. Here you are attentive. And how you can be attentive? Someone is talking and you are shaking your head. So it's showing them that you are listening to them. If someone you are talking to shakes his head, it means that they are listening to you. So this is the answer. Which of the following presentation techniques is the best way to engage a visual learner? So the key word now here is a visual learner. List FM terms on a slide and enunciate the words clearly. Yes, no, or maybe?
No.
No?
No.
I believe it's B. Create highly interactive presentation.
No, it's not B. C.
D.
Let us go through
So
these.
we are highlighting it by circles.
The correct answer is D. Why? List FM terms on a slide. This is a visual thing. Okay, they can see the slide. But then what gives it away is enunciate the words clearly. Enunciate, it means voicing the words clearly, highlighting them. This is for what? This is an auditory way. Someone who wants to listen to it, you are auditory. Creating a highly interactive presentation. Interactive, it means that you ask them a question, you interact with them a lot. This is doing. This is a kinesthetic thing. C, again, provide opportunities for group discussion. Again, this is a kinesthetic. The only one which is purely visual is D, using circles and arrows on a slide to demonstrate a process. Alvin, you are replying to which one?
The third question.
Okay, I will go back. Third question. Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Active listening involves showing attentiveness through body language. This is one of the ways that you are actively listening. Why it does? If you're talking to someone and they are showing attentiveness by shaking their head, isn't this a sign that they are actively listening?
Anyone can move any part of their body while listening, but it doesn't mean that you have understood what they are talking about.
Fine, that's true. But look at the other options which are there. Which one can be correct? So,
just my own opinion that C, when you have comments after their presentation, it demonstrates that you are an active listener.
So it says here thinking of counter arguments. So the definition of active listening is that you have to be attentive and wait till the end, and then you can come with a counter argument. But while they are talking and you are jumping to conclusion of how to reply to them, this is not active listening. So this is a demonstrate active listening. it doesn't necessarily mean it is. So you can be, if you are really listening to someone and someone is shaking their head, it's not a guarantee, but it is a way which show that you are active listening. That's what's meant.
Or maybe it's just an appreciation to the speaker that you are listening, but it doesn't mean that you are attentive listener. Anyway, thank you very much for the explanation. I really appreciate it.
All right.
I'll consider that in my answers in the future.
Yes, no worries. Alam, you had a question?
Yes, I cannot see the presentation slide here. Something's wrong here. So I cannot see on my screen the presentation slide.
Yeah, but the rest of the team, you're able to see it?
Or I can see it.
I can see it. Maybe you are using your phone. You can swipe it to the second slide. Swipe it.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Which meeting practice increases the likelihood of everyone showing up on time and having energy to focus on the meeting agenda?
Option B, choosing the right attendees.
See, listen. You have to look for the keywords when answering the questions. And this is again for you, Elvin. Now we're talking about A, having a clear meeting purpose. So if you look at
Scheduling
is the answer, but let me tell you why. If you look at all these options, these are all tools to show a effective meeting agenda. But here it focuses on one point, is that everyone showing on time. So regarding everyone showing up on time, scheduling is the keyword. Which of the following items would be the most important to include in a meeting summary? So here again, look at the keywords. Keywords is that the most important. If you look at all of these, okay, all of these are potential things to include in your meeting summary. Okay, you can say that on so and so date we convened and it was this agenda and the following ground rules were followed and this is an attachment of the presentation and these are the key decisions made. So out of these four, which is the most important to include in a meeting summary?
agenda, sir.
Key decision made.
Yes.
Key decision made.
Okay, what best example demonstrates cross-culture effectiveness? A, expecting a handshake for all business introduction. B, ignoring differences because they drive relationships apart. C, not apologizing even if you are wrong in order to save face. D, avoiding remarks that could embarrass superiors in a meeting.
Ignoring difference because they drive relations.
Yes.
Ignoring the differences because they drive relationship apart.
Yes. What is the primary benefit of keeping email writing concise?
Improve readability and effectiveness.
Encourages swift response.
Not necessarily.
D, sir. D.
D, sir. Improves readability and effectiveness.
See, the answer is delta. Why? Encouraging swift responses, not necessarily. Can someone be very concise in you, which requires you to provide lots of evidence? So, and you cannot maybe reply to that immediately. That's not the reason. Prevent overload of system capacity. This is really not something to be taken into consideration. It's not something that I care about the size of the attachment. Minimizes organizational liability. You can write a very concise email and you can still make your company hold a lot of liability. So the best thing is that to improve readability and effectiveness. This is the key thing. So these were the slides for today. if you don't have any question, we will close the meeting now.
I just
Any
want
question? Yeah.
the exercise that we have done right away. These are from IFMA exercises at the end of the chapter, or it's by routine?
These are the and if you go and start reading the material, you find them at the end of each chapter. Okay, and if you are able to pass the questions at the end of the chapters, you will pass the exam.
Yeah, this is the one that you ask us to focus on.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other question?
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy your evening. See you in a couple of days.
See you. See you Monday.
Thank you.
Thank you.